The message in this video is only for the Negroes who go by the term African American, foundational Black American. Many of the so-called African American ancestors were the copper-colored races that the Europeans discovered when they landed on the southern shores of the United States of America. I want y'all to look at these signs right here. These signs were created during the Jim Crow era. Back in the day, foundational Black Americans were referred to as Negro or colored. Now let me go back and read the definition of American. A native of America originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. In the United States, they never refer dark-skinned or brown-skinned people such as Asians, Native Americans, people from India and the Middle East, or any other dark-skinned or brown-skinned non-black people in the United States of America as Negro or colored. The only race of people that are referred to as Negro or colored are the so-called African American people. Back to the definition of American. Okay. Copper-colored races. No colored allowed. When they say colored, they're talking about the so-called African American people during the Jim Crow era. Colored, 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 colored. So-called African Americans, they talking about your copper-colored race ancestors found here by Europeans when they came to America. Remember, the so-called Native Americans, I'm talking about the Mongoloids on the Indian reservation, are not indigenous to America because their ancestors migrated out of Siberia into North America. Those are facts. No Africans sold my ancestors to Europeans. Then the Europeans put them in chains and then pack them like sardines in the bottom of slave ships and then sail from West Africa to America. That did not happen to my ancestors. Again, like I said before, my ancestors were already here in the United States of America, and none of them came from Africa, and none of them were enslaved by Europeans. We were free people. The descendant of the copper-colored races, aka the so-called African Americans, are the only race of people in the United States of America who are not immigrants. Everyone else, including Native Americans, are descendants of immigrants whose ancestors either migrated or fled their country. The reason why the so-called African Americans are the most discriminated is because they are the indigenous people of the United States of America. Everyone knows this, even your so-called distant black brothers and sisters from Africa. Many of the so-called African Americans believe that they are being discriminated against because they are black. That is not true. The reason why we are being discriminated and attacked on a daily basis because we are the original people of the United States of America, and they want to get rid of us. Why do y'all think that African immigrants in the United States and Africans on the African continent have all this animosity and contempt towards a foundation of black Americans? Why is that? The reason why black Africans have all this contempt for foundation of black Americans is because we are not Africans. Africans from the African continent and so-called African Americans / black Americans / foundational black Americans of the United States of America are not the same people. The transatlantic slave trade was a fictional story told to the so-called African Americans by Europeans to deceive them of their true identity, which is American. No disrespect to Native Americans because they went through racism as well. But the truth must be told. Native Americans are not the first people or indigenous to America because their Mongoloid ancestors migrated from Siberia and tracked across the Bering Strait into Alaska and North America. Those are scientific facts. The so-called African American ancestors were already here in the United States of America and didn't come here in the bottom of slave ships from West Africa. Stop spreading those lies that Native Americans are indigenous to America and the so-called African American ancestors came from Africa. In my next video, I'm going to talk about this book by Peter DeRoe, History of America Before Columbus, according to documents and approved authors.